The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports, in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Tall pocket goal!
It's what dreams are made of.
They are going to the World Cup Finals!
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the COYGIG podcast. I'm Kathleen McNamee and I am joined by former Ireland internationals Emma Byrne and Karen Duggan to talk about Ireland's friendly today against China. It was a nil-all result. It was a feisty affair. There was a lot of very interesting play, shall we call it. And yeah, I'm live from Marbella at the moment, so I was one of the lucky few and very much one of the few who got to see it all in person. But how did you guys find the match?
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the sun because I'm sopping wet after cycling home there, but enjoy the match. Enjoy is a stretch. I would say that we're good at getting results again. You look at the fact that they're a team that are ranked higher than us and we got a result, clean sheet. So they're the positives you can take. I think in possession, we were sloppy at times. Body language in the first half didn't look especially good when we were going forward. In certain areas, I still think that the way the team is laid out could be a little bit better. I prefer Megan Connolly in midfield, to be honest. I think when Nifahi comes back in, that needs to happen. And then to free up Denise to be more in the pocket. I think that they need to go for kind of a square in midfield there and allow Katie and Denise to kind of roam in between the lines a bit more.
Katie and Denise weren't massively, well, like they were in the game, but they weren't their sort of normal absolute domination. And Katie in particular, even though she was playing up that bit higher, which I know Emma is something you always like to see, she just was kind of struggling to get on the ball a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a complete hypocrite here because I mean there are lots of positives I think we can take out of it. As you said, Carol, clean sheet, which is a massive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think some players can definitely be they came out on top, like for example a new player, Aoife Mannion. I thought she was excellent and I think she's going to be a really good and important player for us. But just regarding Katie, for me she was too high, she was too wide, she was too out of it. And I was like talking with some of my friends here, and we were saying, like, if Katie could come into midfield and have a 4 in midfield, I know we're slightly obsessed with playing that 3-5, whatever it is. Yeah. I think it's a 5 at the back. We play 5 when we're defending anyway, that's for sure. But because the 2 wide players, as in Megan Campbell and De La Harpe was in the first half, because those 2 wide players, they weren't really contributing to the midfield, they weren't really contributing to the game, as in getting forward. They were pushing high when the ball started with Brosnan, but we weren't getting them on the ball and we weren't looking to get them on the ball. So for me it's pointless. I totally agree with Karen when she says play the box in midfield, play 4 in midfield, whatever way you want to play it, put 4 in midfield.
Yeah, because when we do get the ball in wide areas, it tends to be Heather Payne pulling off wide, or Megan Campbell getting down the line. And you can still have those 2 players doing that. But if you have Katie and Denise in that box in midfield, they can also support that and get involved in midfield play and kind of demand the ball. I just felt like it was just long ball city today and it just didn't suit us. I mean, Chinese were faster than us and they had so much time to read the ball because, again, in the first half in particular, we dropped so deep. Like, I understand a low block, but that it was a low block. Like, there was times where it was like
low.
It was so low. Like, there was times where it was 4v1 and we didn't step in with the Chinese striker. And that's something that Nifahi did brilliantly against Scotland was, okay, we have 3 centre-backs, we can afford to step in here so that we're not dragging back another midfielder. And then when we do win the ball, we might have an outlet. And I just felt like we lacked that outlet, particularly in the first half. I think we pushed a little bit higher in the second half. And we went in with the strikers a little bit better, but we can't afford to give them the space. I think we afforded them in the first 20 minutes in particular. If they had players of the likes of your Australian, your Sam Kerrs, your Roards, people who are going to take on, or forward, people who are going to take on shots from distance, it could cause more troubles than what we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, China, for me, would probably be one of the easier teams to play. You know, they haven't played in so long. They don't get together. I know they're ranked fairly well in terms of FIFA rankings, but they haven't been very successful
as well. Yeah,
they haven't been successful over the years. It's a great challenge, and I think it's a great result for Ireland. It'll definitely give them confidence. But we're talking about when Ireland are in the World Cup. Can they play through the thirds? Can they build up? Because they haven't been able to build up because it stops in midfield. Because you've got Denise O'Sullivan, who was excellent today as well, I thought. You've got Lily Agg, who's a great addition to the team. And then, like, for me, even if you put Megan Connolly into midfield when Faye comes back, it's too much to ask those three to do that, to build up. And other teams are just going to pack out the midfield. It's going to be easy for them. So at least if you bring Katie back and have a 4 in midfield, you know 2 people are definitely going to keep the ball that you can give the ball to, and that's a massive advantage for us. And then the build-up can be slow. We're trying to build up really quickly and get the ball forward really quickly. I understand that in a counter-attacking style football, but you have to be able to keep the ball in midfield. You have to be able to get your breaths back. You have to be able to help the team recover, because they are going to be under the cosh for a lot of those games. So they have to know how to manipulate the game and keep possession.
And so, taking that into consideration, then, did you see any positives from the play today, or was it mostly more of a disappointing showing?
I thought, like, to echo what Emma said, I thought Aoife Mannion showed her class and kind of composure on the ball. Again, I think the more experience she gets playing it alongside Louise, the better she'll get at kind of stepping in with the striker. I thought she did really well. Again, Denise was there. I thought when Heather got in wide positions, she tried to create something. I'd actually wouldn't mind seeing Heather in the fullback position and trying to see someone
fullback.
In the wing back position.
Right.
I know.
Karen, it's like we've not had a conversation before this, but I have it written down. I don't know if you can. No, you won't be able to see it. I have Heather Payne out right wide.
Yeah, that's her best position, because you want her running at people at speed and with space, not chasing shadows down the wing. I think that you can afford to put her in the wing back position and then bring in someone like Carusa up top, who can maybe hold up a ball and allow then your likes of Katie and Denise, if they're in the pocket, to join in the play.
You've actually read my notes. Like,
it's weird.
Have you got my iCloud? Have you got my iCloud password?
I will not reveal my secrets.
You've actually read my notes. I have got Carusa up front because I really like her, and I think she could be a really good player, because what she does, I really like Heather Payne as well, but I think with Carusa, she's really good at holding up the ball. She's very good at closing down. It's what Vera Pauw wants, somebody up there that can close down, that can be that initial press. She's very good at that, but she's also brilliant at holding up the ball and bringing other players in. Yeah. And I would love to see Heather Payne out right in some way. I would play a 4-4. To be quite honest.
Yeah, I was only saying, I know she won't get away from the 5 at the back, so I would say have Heather up there and then allow Denise and Katie to be our more advanced players, but not wide, kind of inverted wingers.
Interesting. She won't move though. She won't change that 5 or that 3 at the back. She won't change it. I think it's crying out for it though, personally, because personally, I don't think Megan Campbell is a fullback either. I don't think she's going to be able to get up and down that line, and we need her on the pitch because she's a really good player and she's got great throw-in. But she, if you're going to play a 3 at the back, you have to have wing backs that can get up and down that pitch. They have to be the fittest players on the pitch, and they have to be able to get up and down, like move. And I don't think Megan Campbell is that player to do it, but she has to play. So a 4 at the back is an obvious thing.
Not going to happen.
I love the way you state it's an obvious thing with the full knowledge that it's not obvious to Vera, and she will never ever do it in a million years.
I think Vera just wants those numbers. I think she wants the numbers at the back, the 5 at the back. But she can do that. She can play a 4 and a 4 and have that holding midfielder drop in more often than what I would like, but it's still creating that 5. And it's an easy enough. You don't have to be so rigid with. We talk about shape, but actually we talk about shape too much, because you just have the players that drop in a more defensive role and players that push on in a more attacking role. It doesn't really matter if you set up a 3-5-2 or 4-4-3, as long as they understand their jobs and they're not sitting too deep as we were in the first half.
We talked a little bit about Aoife Mannion. She was really impressive. And actually one of the things I thought was quite impressive about her as well was just how vocal she was. Literally from the first whistle, she was dictating. I think the only person louder on the pitch than her was Courtney. And she just seemed very at ease from the minute the game started. Her parents and her sister were there too, which was very nice. They were absolutely delighted for her, of course. And Vera went over to them at the end and kind of, you see in Wimbledon when the tennis players like jump up and kind of high five their team, Vera basically did that to them. But we also had 2 other debutantes in nil-all and Marissa Shiva. Did anything from them stand out to you guys, or was there anything that you thought, oh, this is why they have been brought into the squad?
I don't think Shiva got long enough, and it wasn't really a game for her to get into because we didn't dominate possession, and I think her strength is pace, and we didn't give her anything really to work with, so it was
she had a few balls down the wing and like her pace was insane, and she had a beautiful turn on her as well. And I agree with you, she definitely didn't get enough time to show it off, and I thought when she first came on she was maybe a bit nervous, so you could kind of see she wasn't going for things as much, but definitely showed something interesting.
Yeah, I think in training is how these decisions are going to be made. When you see these players in training is when they're more relaxed. Day 3, day 4, you can tell if they're going to be, if they're going to contribute to the team. Personally, I don't want to be harsh, but Della Harper for me didn't really show anything. I think we've got players already in that squad that are better players, being honest, and that's that. I agree, Shiva didn't get enough of a chance, but Kathleen, you've seen her play more than us. I'd like to, but again, I was watching the game and I'm looking at these players and I'm thinking, I hope they've been looked at in their club environments or even in training. You can go and watch them in training. Just to bring players into this environment without knowing anything about them, without having seen them, is strange for me, because it's a huge year for Irish football. It's massive. And as a player, if you're going to be left on the bench, or worse, left at home in Ireland, like probably where we'll be, that player who's been brought in has to be deserving of that place. And if they're a better player, you understand as a player. But if they're not, and they're just being brought in because of their name or the league they're playing in, or because they're new, that's very, very, very harsh. So I hope there's homework being done on these players. And it's different with Aoife Mannion. She plays in the WSL. She's a player that hasn't played in a long time through injury. So, I mean, she's quality. She's going to be even better, get better and better. But the other 2 who we don't know much about, I'm hoping somebody does know more about them, because it's very difficult for them themselves to show their quality. And also it's difficult for a manager to make a decision in 5 or 6 days.
Well, Vera's always very strong on her network of scouts that she likes to send out around the place to look at players and to kind of feed back the information to her, which is something I know Karen and I have talked about on the show before, about the fact that she doesn't watch WNL games. Well, she doesn't come over to watch them. I'm sure she watches clips or whatever. But I get your point. I think to bring in a player like that who's new and hasn't been around before, they have to be starting 11 or one of the first 3 subs to have.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise there are girls here that are good enough. By here, I mean who've played, who've been involved in the campaign before, who are coming through from underage structures, who know, I suppose, not to say that the new people don't know about the culture, but know what it took to get to where they are now, that kind of a thing. And it must be very, I also think there's a few personalities like that you need to have in and around a squad as well to maintain kind of good atmosphere the whole point. They'll be under an awful lot of pressure. So the atmosphere is important. So you don't want to be bringing in too many new people.
And we're talking about the World Cup. If this was a normal year, we wouldn't even be talking about it. We'd be like, great, bring them in, fantastic, can't wait to see them play. But we're talking about it's World Cup year. We're preparing for the World Cup. It's not a time to be trying out players unless they're very stand out-ish. And this player, you know, that before they come in, that they are going to be a huge asset for the team.
I would say nearly from now on, it's about establishing that style of play, making sure everyone's completely well drilled. That's why I actually maybe would have not brought on your Anya and your Diane today, because we know what they can do. We know they're definitely going to be in the squad. And I maybe would have liked to have just seen people who've played a little bit less just to see how they would have fared. But I guess there's no room for sentimentality either.
Are they definites for the squad?
No, they're not. They're absolutely bricking it right now.
They are, but
I'm not even giving an opinion on it. I'm curious that you would say those two names are definites, because for me, I
think that there would be conscious of the eyebrows raised if those two names were not brought to Australia.
No, but I do agree with what you said. I would have loved to see, for example, Atkinson. I want to see her play. She's moved across the water to play. She's playing in one of the best leagues in the world. I want to see what she's like. Again, I would have liked to see Carusa play a full game. Obviously, maybe, you know, she might not be in Vera's mindset as a start in number 9, but I don't know why.
Yeah, halftime would have been.
I don't know why she's not. And it's a great chance to do that. These are your games that you find out who you're going to play in the World Cup. And I get that you have to see how the new girls fit in, blah, blah, blah. But that's it. Now, the games in June is going to be more interesting for me, because those are the definite games that are going to be, you know, the test for the starting 11. So I think we'll get a really good idea who those players are going to be that are starting.
Well, because there's also rumours afoot that Megan Finnegan's going to be called in for the American camp coming up in April. Not officially announced by the FAI, but pretty much confirmed as happening. And Sophie, is it Whitehouse? Goalkeeper at Lewes. So it's 2 more names being thrown into the mix. I don't know if you guys saw that. John Fallon reported it in the Examiner.
No, I hadn't seen it, but again, I don't understand the delay in this. I mean, it's the last chance. Why aren't these players being brought in earlier? Because June is about your starting 11. It's not about seeing who else you can add to the team. By June, you should know your team, you should know your squad, and you should be figuring out who you want to start in the World Cup. Finnegan's a good player, but again, you know, it's about how late these players are coming in. I don't really get it, but they need more games. They need more friendly games to show. Have a friendly game that just for the newbies. Bring them to Ireland. Let them play against each other like old school. You'll soon find out. But for me, Vera needs to, you know, it's an unusual situation, because most teams going into the World Cup will have their style of play. They'll understand their players. They'll know how they want to set up, and players will understand that as well. I feel like that Vera still needs to, first of all, pick her first 11 and then iron out the problems that they're having, which is the possession in midfield and the build-up play through midfield. Because that's a huge thing. We can't be pumping balls in the World Cup up the front into space. That's going to be absolutely horrible if we continue to do that. So Imagine trying to change that before the World Cup. It's going to be a big job.
And so was there anyone, we talked about beside the like people who made their debuts, do you think there was anyone on the squad today who maybe didn't do themselves many favors in terms of getting on the plane to Australia?
I don't think the players at risk were on the pitch, so it would have to be based on training performances.
Who do you think's at risk then? Now I'm interested. Who's at risk?
That was in the squad.
Yeah. I want to say. Okay. I don't think anyone. I don't think anyone played themselves out of the team. No, there were.
I don't think anyone played them out. But yeah.
There were some very sloppy mistakes that just cannot happen, and I was surprised at some of them. I certainly don't think Megan Connolly can play at the back, personally. No. I don't know whether that was evident today or not to the manager.
I also wouldn't have played her on the left side. It's not her natural position to begin with, playing centre back, so put her on her stronger side. I'm sure Mannion would have been comfortable playing on the left side. I think Megan is very good at playing that disciplined 6 role. So if we are to change to the box in midfield and allow Katie and Denise to go on, I think she should be the 6.
Well, we talked to her about it yesterday after their training session, and like how she felt about whether she enjoyed playing in that position, and you could just tell by her face she was like, oh yeah, it's fine, you know, I do it for the team.
Just be honest. No, I can't stand it, but I want to get a game, so I'll play.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a midfielder and she was doing well in midfield.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if she then goes into midfield, she hasn't played in midfield for Ireland for what, 2 years?
I know.
Year and a half?
It's not that long. I know.
She hasn't played in the last 4 games. She hasn't played in midfield. She played at the back in that 5.
It's true.
So either way, I mean, Vera Pauw just needs to get her team and where she wants to play them. Maybe she is. Maybe that is the team. Who knows?
I thought you were about to be, she just needs to get herself together.
Get yourself together, woman. No. No. I mean, when Fahy comes back, when Niamh comes back, she has to play. Just on her Scotland performance alone, she just has to play. And they're so accustomed to each other playing there. So, and for me, Mannion is going to play. She should play. She's good enough. And obviously you don't leave Louise Quinn out. So there's your 3 at the back.
Megan Campbell has to start.
Yeah, Megan Campbell has to be there. So yeah, there's your 4 at the back. So that's perfect. Get your 4 in midfield. Happy days.
There we go.
There with Carusa. We'll see. Let's see. We should start putting a few bets on.
And then up next, we have the US women's national team. So the team are going over to the States. They're playing, I think it's like 3 days between the 2 games. So there's a game in Austin and then a game in St. Louis. Vera Pauw was quite interesting, like talking about this before, about the fact that, you know, she wants the team to face the best of the best so that they can challenge and they're not stressed out when it comes to the World Cup. They couldn't really have chosen much better than the US, all things considered, since they are the world champions.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we played the US? But we'd be buzzing.
I was just going to say, it's not a confidence booster. That's what I would
Definitely
say.
isn't, but we'd be buzzing because we'd always wanted to
Big
go to
step
America.
away. Yeah, playing in front of packed stadiums.
Don't worry, staying in a gorgeous hotel. Go shopping.
Good to know what was on your mind, Emma, when you were
absolutely shopping before the game. I'll be back, don't worry, I'll be back for kickoff. No, I mean, I do think it's a good idea to play top teams. I don't think I would have played America, to be quite honest, but then again, I wouldn't have played Germany either, and they've done that. You know, it's difficult because you have to try and take the positives out of the games, and with games like that, if America are on form and they feel like playing, because sometimes, you know, it's just a training match for them, if they feel like playing, there won't be many positives to take out unless Courtney Brosnan has an absolute stormer, and then we can praise her. It's
I
difficult.
think we're good at the back. We have established that we're good at the back, and the thing we need to work on is those playing through the thirds. And are we going to get an opportunity to do that in any of these friendlies?
Yeah, but it's a great trip. What a
fantastic. And I suppose you can kind of say, oh, it'll emulate what the game might be like against Canada. You can kind of justify it in that way. Somewhat.
True.
Karen, you sound like you're headed on this trip and you're wanting to convince everyone not to cancel. So you still get great. We got a couple of questions in as well from listeners about today's game. So Kieran Bannon wants to know, if you picked your World Cup lineup today, who plays? He says, I think I have mine other than the right wing position.
Well, we've just given him the right wing position.
Heather is the right wing position. Caruso top. There you go.
Yeah. Mannion, Quinn, Fahey, Campbell, Connolly, Agg, O'Sullivan, Payne, Caruso, McCabe. But 4-3-3, and then they can drop back. McCabe and Payne.
Lovely stuff. And then Cian McGibney wants to know, what lessons, if any, did Vera and her coaches learn from the game today? Which we've kind of been talking about generally through the podcast, but what do you think the standout one would be?
I think that we can compete against the teams that are going to be in the World Cup for sure. That's a major positive thing. I think one of the learning thing is, do we need to change formation because we need to get more numbers in midfield? And the big question is, how can they get Katie McCabe in the game? You can't have a player like Katie McCabe on the pitch and not have her involved in at least 75% of the play. Because you've seen what Denise can do. Denise is quality. She's excellent. Yeah. And she was on the ball a lot. But she was losing the ball because she didn't have that. She was taking too many.
Anyone close enough to her to play the bounces. She was going winning it herself. And then there was 3 of them. She was too deep. It was just too much for her. And that's what we can't have.
If we could play as close together in possession as we do out of possession, as in defending, because we just go like this and then back. If we can play that close in possession and have the full-backs pushing on to help with the numbers, I think we'd see a different story. But we try to spread out and it's too difficult. We need to play a little bit closer together to keep possession.
The best game I saw link up was between Katie and Denise was probably that Finland away game, when they allowed Denise to kind of press a little bit higher and win the ball up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So I think they should look back on games like that. Yes, the low block will work to a point, but if we need points, we want to win a game.
Yeah, do you know what? The low block, we're going to see a lot of the low block, let's be honest. We're going to be talking about the low block. But if you have 2 fullbacks that can bomb when you win it back, it's a different game. It's a completely different game. The problem is we don't. So when we win it back, we've nobody. And poor Heather Payne she could go into athletics at this stage. She's just running around. And even, the commentary today, sorry, they were talking about they haven't seen much of Heather Payne. And it feels like she wasn't in the game. She wasn't really, but it's not her fault. It's not her fault. She's a good player. Just need to get her on the ball.
It did feel like that was kind of the case for a couple of players today. You kind of realized when they eventually got on the ball, I haven't seen all that much of them, or they haven't been in the game. It was very much and it wasn't even like China were particularly hammering us. Like, they only had a few clear-cut chances.
I did think that some of their midfield player was very slick. The amount of touches they can do things one touch so easily. Like, technically, they are a very good team. Now, they weren't very clinical. And we didn't afford any space in behind. And the one time they got in behind was the offside goal. So we played to our strengths against a technical team. But yeah, it was hard for the midfield at times, I thought.
Yeah, no, definitely. They were a bit aloof and invisible in the whole thing. But as we said at the start, it's a clean sheet. It's a friendly, so it doesn't really matter. We still did get a result against a very good team.
And I think straight off the bat, there's good feeling around bringing in Aoife Mannion. So it's kind of justified that, okay, now is a good time to bring them in. For me, like you say, to bring someone in for them to be a starter, like that's the bar that the new people need to be setting.
Yeah, she was saying to me after the match today, that's the longest she's played since she did her ACL. And I asked her, you know, how are you feeling? And she was like, amazing. That, like, it's brilliant. I'm so excited. And you could just see the buzziness off her. Like, obviously, she just played a really good game and it was a big deal for her and her family were there. But you could just feel it radiating off her. So, yeah, definitely A, no ACL injuries, B, more good performances. And we are happy gals. Well, Emma and Karen, thank you so much for joining me this evening. The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports is sponsored by Cadbury FC, official stock partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. If I make my very, very early 2:30 in the morning taxi to the airport, we will be back next week with another episode of the COYGIG podcast. But for now, I shall bid you both goodbye. I hope it's not too rainy, Karen, and Emma, I hope you're enjoying yourself. Are you in Rome at the moment or Barcelona?
Yes, I'm in Rome. That's probably why the internet is cutting a little bit, because I feel like I'm living in the 1970s again. Everything is just much slower.
Well, thank you very much for joining me and have a good evening.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports, in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.